I join our community of human rights and peace advocates today here in front of the Harris Waltz headquarters in Orlando with a deep sense of outrage and disappointment. The physical assault on Nadia Ahmed at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago last week by other members of the Florida delegation represented a complete disregard for the supposed values of the Democratic National Committee and the Florida Democratic Party.
You know what? Let me have you do that again because we got too much. Because I'm hearing the audio that's actually coming through the microphone, so I know it's overpowering.
Yeah. Okay. Start over altogether?
Yeah, if you would.
I join our community of human rights and peace advocates today in front of the Harris Waltz headquarters in Orlando, Florida, with a deep sense of outrage and disappointment. The physical assault on Nadia Ahmed at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago last week by other members of the Florida delegation represented a complete disregard for the supposed values of the Democratic National Committee and the Florida Democratic Party. Let me be clear. This act of violence by white men on a Muslim woman wearing a hijab is indefensible. It is an affront to the principles of justice, equality, and human dignity that Democrats hold dear. Nadia Ahmed, like every individual who attended the convention, had the right to express herself freely and to be part of the democratic process without fear of harm. It is our First Amendment right to do so, enshrined in the Constitution. That right was stripped away from her in an act of aggression that was seemingly endorsed by the FDP due to their failure to discipline the men who assaulted her, which resulted in her receiving a concussion, but also by the FDP chair and executive director's attempt to rescind her credentials at the convention the following day. This incident occurred a week ago. Democratic leaders from Florida and DC have not addressed it, nor have they issued an apology to Nadia. She is a member of the DNC, co-chair of the DNC Interfaith Council, and a member of the DNC Women's Caucus Executive Committee. The silence is deafening. This is not just about Nadia, though. It is also about the Islamophobia that has been running rampant through the Democratic Party, particularly the Florida Democratic Party, since the war on Gaza began. Earlier this year, the FDP hosted pro-war Senator John Fetterman at their gala here in Orlando. When an attendee rose to protest him and the genocide in Gaza, she was met with the Democrats in attendance by them booing her and trying to shout her down with chants of 4 more years, then arrested. The FDP then tried to downplay the incident by claiming that her disruption was about college protests rather than the 40,000 plus innocent civilians now murdered in Gaza. The party chair spun the incident to make a warning to any Democrat who dares to protest the ongoing genocide. This is not what the party is supposed to represent, and why, after being a proud Democrat for 30 years, I, with heavy reflection, switched my party affiliation this year to NPA. As the days since the incident and the broader mistreatment of the pro-Palestinian uncommitted movement at the convention pass, the Democratic Party has more and more to answer for, not just in words, but in actions. We must hold those responsible for Nadia's assault accountable, and we must ensure that such violence is never tolerated again. But beyond that, we must commit ourselves to achieving a ceasefire in Gaza and an arms embargo against Israel to make this war and the suffering of innocent Palestinians finally come to an end. Thank you.
Okay, so second.
Okay. Right. You know, we're ready?
Yeah.
All right, our next speaker is Brother
Woo! I come to you today, not only as a Muslim, not only as a black man whose ancestors graced this land with their blood, as they travel across these free lands, seeking liberation and giving enlightenment while their ankles and hands were shackled. But today I come to you as a human being. We once again today, together, to join in with the voices also advocating for a ceasefire and a diplomatic situation or solution in Palestine, as well as in Sudan, as well as a solution in the Congo that uplifts the Congolese people. But for the situation in Palestine particularly, we call for a complete arms embargo against Israel, similar to the former apartheid state of South Africa, a complete withdrawal of the IOF, as I say, in Gaza, as well as the occupied West Bank, along with the illegal settlers that occupy this and surrounding regions. We are asking and employing every American to demand Ms. Kamala Harris and or Biden to explain how the Palestinians' lives will change or stay the same on day one of a much needed and requested ceasefire. What is the solution so the Palestinians can finally have and be able to achieve what they have asked for many ages, may I add? With respects to the conflict, like the recent years of late in the Middle East or Vietnam, I deeply encourage that a extreme amount of recourse and deep concern on what once more is threatening to again happen in the Middle East and North Africa region, yet again. What is it that the American children are not once again used as pawns in another imperialistic and pointless war that they truly do not understand? Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Who else? I want to
Okay, Alicia.
try and squeeze in as many people as possible.
In Jerusalem, I stood at the Western Wall where Jews have prayed for thousands of years. I walked the Via Dolorosa, the path where Jesus walked on his way to his crucifixion, and prayed in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. I stood outside the Dome of the Rock where Muhammad ascended to the seven heavens and heard the adhan. I also saw doors of the old city penetrated by bullets and bullet holes, and the streets littered with soldiers in full combat gear with their fingers on the trigger with their automatic weapons. Traveling throughout the occupied West Bank, I went through checkpoint after checkpoint in the shadow of a militarized apartheid wall. I drove down the streets where my passport or license plate dictated where I could go. I saw water stations that bypassed dilapidated Palestinian villages but provided endless amounts of safe and clean water to illegal settlements in order to nurture their manicured lawns. Today marks 326 days that the world has watched in horror as the death toll continues to rise, not of soldiers or enemy combatants, but of civilians, women and children, over 18,000 children. The sick, the injured, and also medical staff who have given their lives to save them. We are not watching a war take place on the battlefield. We are watching places that should be sanctuaries and places of love and protection be decimated in the blink of an eye, one after another. Churches and mosques, schools and hospitals, playgrounds and homes. October 7th was not the beginning of something, but a reaction to something. A reaction to a catastrophic ethnic cleansing that began over 75 years ago. A reaction to a crippling military occupation that has gone on for 57 years. A reaction to a blockade that is now 17 years old that has amounted to collective punishment for more than 2.2 million Palestinians in Gaza that include Muslims and Christians. Where the Israeli government uses mathematical formulas to meticulously calculate how much food is allowed in according to what they deem as necessary for survival of the population. But this was all before October 7th. There is no military solution here. There is no military objective for the atrocities that have been committed by the Israeli government. This is simply to inflict maximum pain and suffering on the men, women, and most tragically, the innocent children of Gaza. While a ceasefire is welcomed, it is not enough. We need a full and permanent ceasefire immediately. The occupation must end. The blockade must be lifted so all Palestinians can live in peace and with dignity. Citizens in the United States and Western nations must continue to pressure their governments to be on the right side of history, or the Israeli government will continue to be a destructive force acting with impunity. We must put politics and religion aside and address the humanitarian crisis that is taking place. The West has the power to make a swift and meaningful change in this tragic time in our history. Vice President Kamala Harris cannot come in and replace President Biden and think that she'll get a pass because she's the lesser of two evils, or because we don't want another 4 years of Trump's fascist nonsense dragging our country down. We have a front row seat to a genocide that is taking place where starvation is used meticulously as being used meticulously as a weapon of war. Vice President Harris' public statements and actions have not even come close to adequately addressing the severity of the humanitarian crisis that has unfolded in Gaza over the past 10 months at the hands of the Israeli government, backed by billions of US dollars and military support. We need our government to know the world is watching.
Hang, let these cars pass, because we get in the background.
Yeah, this is
And I hope people are watching behind us in case somebody's going to do something bad to me at my back. That, you know, so we know. Yeah. Okay, now would be a good.
My name is Terry Falbo, and I am a very active member of the local Democratic Party, knocking doors and other things for many local candidates, state and others, for, I would say, at least 6 years now. And the reason that I'm here is that I'm just extremely saddened that more of my fellow colleagues, my Democrats, are not standing against the genocide that is going on, against our weapons made in the USA, funded by the USA, being used to mass slaughter children and other civilians throughout Gaza and the West Bank, actually at this point, and Lebanon. But mainly right now we're talking about Gaza. And I do think we've tried, so many people have tried to get more people. We've tried in various ways to get people to stand up and take a stand. And we just have to keep doing it, and that's why I'm here. There's recently, the most recent thing is there was $20 billion more approved for arms to Israel to continue our complicity in the mass slaughter, but there's still time to stop that, because if at least one senator, and hopefully more, raise an objection when they come back into session, then it starts a process where there has to be thorough discussion, and we can possibly stop that. So I'm hoping that all people, regardless of political affiliation, will express that that's what we need our senators to do, to stand up for money to be used, billions to be used here to help our communities in the struggles that we have going on here, and not to slaughter civilians overseas. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hang on a second.
I'm going to edit these and put these in the chat through Google Drive. Does anyone need their face completely blurred out? Just consent these friends. Everyone's okay with these?
Does that also apply to the Mastodon and Iron Snowflake posting?
Thank you.
Give me a little smudge.
What?
Will you what?
A little smudge. That will do
Okay,
it.
I got you.
Okay. All right, I'm ready to go. You ready?
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Mel. I am the chair of the Palestine Solidarity Committee at the Orlando local chapter of the Democratic Socialists of America. On behalf of our Palestine Solidarity Committee, I wanted to issue this statement. Orlando DSA expresses its profound frustration and concern regarding the treatment of Nadia Ahmad, a DNC delegate and fellow Orlandoan, at the Democratic National Convention last week. The Islamophobic attack on Ahmad, carried out by 5 members of the Laborers International Union of North America, an attack perpetrated on the convention floor against a peaceful protest of Israel's ongoing genocide of Palestinians in Gaza, was nothing short of a bigoted display of power and a flagrant disregard of Ahmad's rights to freedom of speech and peaceful assembly. For the Florida Democratic Party to then withhold Ahmad's credentials, as well as the credentials of other Muslim attendees and delegates, is a cruel display of institutionalized anti-Muslim bigotry and demonstrates a lack of moral character, empathy, and human decency. We stand with Nadia Ahmad in her call for the Democratic National Committee to formally condemn the attack, implement disciplinary measures on those involved, establish procedures to protect Muslim delegates at future events, and investigate the discriminatory practices of the Florida Democratic Party. We also call on Leona to issue an official statement condemning the actions of the perpetrators, including the president of LiUNA, Brent Booker, Secretary Michael Sabatoni, Vice President Michael Hellstrom, LiUNA Local 261 President Oscar Delatorre, and Regional Organizing Director Scott Gustafson, and to remove them from the organization immediately. We cannot stand by as this brutal violence in defense of an ongoing genocide is allowed to go on unchecked in a public forum of supposedly progressive individuals. Orlando DSA is committed to fighting Islamophobia as well as anti-Arab and anti-Palestinian racism by any means necessary. We echo the BDS movement's demand for the prosecution of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris for their crimes in Gaza. And we encourage the community in Orlando to understand the inherently right-wing and anti-worker nature of the Democratic Party, nationally and in the state of Florida, to demand comprehensive, lasting policies that actively work to combat discrimination and bigotry, and to stand with Nadia Ahmad in her advocacy against Israel and in support of Palestine and the Palestinian people. Signed, the Orlando DSA Palestine Solidarity Committee. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Edmund. I'm a member of the Freedom Road Socialist Organization here in Orlando. We're a national organization based in the people's struggles, in the Palestine movement, the labor movement, and the student movement. I'm here today in complete solidarity with Nadia Ahmad, who is a victim of a racist and cruel act of political repression at the hands of Democratic delegates at the National Convention in Chicago. Nadia's act was righteous, and we condemn the brutality and cruelty unleashed upon her by the very same people that claim to support democracy and political dissent. The events that transpired against Nadia within the DNC are indicative of the party's general attitude towards its own mass base. Historically, the youth and progressive vote has carried the Democratic Party to victory. However, the Biden administration's policies, particularly its role in the genocide in Palestine over the past 4 years, has pushed many people to look for solutions outside of the two-party system. Our organization, FRSO, played a leading role in organizing the nearly 20,000 to march on the DNC 2 weeks ago in Chicago. The coalition included groups ranging from Palestinian organizations, student groups, Black liberation organizations, and more. More than 20,000 people marched on the DNC demanding an end to U.S. aid to Israel and to stop the genocide in Palestine. This historic march, which some estimate to be about twice as big as the turnout in '68, should be a lesson that the people united can never be defeated. We here in the U.S. have a duty to do everything we can to stand with Palestine and the Palestinian people. As college classes begin, students will continue to push for divestment and disclosure of their university's role in funding the genocide. And so regardless of whoever wins in November, whether it's Trump or Biden, we need to make sure that people are getting organized, being involved in people's struggles, local issues, and fighting for justice in their communities. So yeah, thank you for having me.
Doesn't turn out well. What you could maybe do is like people record at home and you can compile them.
Yours was very clear, everything like that. You know, it's just like some this background noise, but let me play with it. Anybody else to speak?
No, do you want to do a few chants before we leave?
Yeah, we should do for B-roll.
Yeah, okay, let's do a few chants.
The program that I'll try and take some room tone and see if I can take put it through Audacity and
I did pirate radio before I did this.
okay. So I'm ready when you are ready.
I like the ones about money that go in. What is it? Israel bombs, USA pays. How many kids did we kill today?
Yes. Okay.
Israel bombs, USA pays.
Israel bombs, USA pays.
How many kids did we kill today?
How many kids did we kill today?
Israel bombs, USA pays.
Israel bombs, USA pays.
How many kids did we kill today?
How many kids did we kill today?
Free Palestine!
Free Palestine!
Free Palestine!
Free Palestine!
Free Palestine!
Free Palestine!
The people united will never be defeated.
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 Money
for schools and education. Not for wars and occupation.
Not for wars and occupation.
Money for schools and education.
Money for schools and education.
Not for wars and occupation.
Not for wars and occupation.
Money for schools and education.
Money for schools and education.
Not for wars and occupation.
Not for wars and occupation.
Justice, you say how?
Stop bombing Gaza now.
Stop bombing Gaza now.
We want justice, you say how?
We want justice, you say how?
Stop bombing kids now.
Stop bombing kids now.
We want justice, you say how?
We want justice, you say how?
Stop bombing Palestinians now.
Stop bombing Palestinians now.
1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Occupation no more.
Occupation no more.
5, 6, 7, 8.
5, 6, 7, 8.
DNC is funding a fascist state.
DNC is funding a fascist state.
1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Occupation no more.
Occupation not a dollar.
No more money for Israel's slaughter.
No more money for Israel's slaughter.
Not a penny, not a dollar.
Not a penny, not a dollar.
No more money for Israel's slaughter.
No more money for Israel's slaughter.
Not a nickel, not a dime.
Not a nickel, not a dime.
No more money for Israel's crimes.
No more money for Israel's crimes.
Not a nickel, not a dime.
Not a nickel, not a dime.
No more money for Israel's crimes.
No more money for Israel's crimes.